So we were close to 20 minutes into the program by that point, and then Darby's sitting in the ring selling. He's won. The heels disappeared wherever they went. And then suddenly MJF's music plays, and here he comes. So we go to the break while he's coming to the ring. Darby's still in the ring. So we come back. They're going to do the in-ring promo. And Darby had put his homeless Willie jacket back on, that dirty canvas thing he wears with the hood, but he's sitting on his ass in the corner while his nemesis is on the microphone berating him. I guess maybe that fits his, what was he called? A brooding emo twink? It fits his brooding emo twink image, I guess. I don't fucking know what all these different nicknames are. But anyway, what?
Nothing, go ahead.
Well, anyway, so he's sitting on his ass in the corner, but MJF's on the microphone. He's all dressed up, suit and the Burberry and the whatever. And he cuts the promo and reminds Darby that he beat him with a headlock takeover at their pay-per-view in 2021. Of course, he'd knocked him out with the Dynamite Diamond, I think, right before that. And he said, "You are not on the level of the devil." But then, and I was expecting MJF's outburst to be the highlight of this, but when Darby responded, was it a couple of weeks ago when he fired up and actually...
Yeah, when they had all four of them in the ring at the same time.
Yeah, and well, he did the same thing. He's doing great. And his story is that he doesn't love material things. And he talks about checking himself into therapy. And while MJF is talking about loving money and cutting people's balls off to get it, and he leads a miserable life. Do you know, this is the Flair and Dusty polar opposite dichotomy, juxtaposition, whatever the proper phraseology would be, that they talked about on the Dusty biography. You had two guys on opposite ends, Jack Webb and Keith Richards. Flair was the kiss-stealing, wheeling-dealing, limousine-riding, jet-flying, custom-made from head to toe, diamond rings, Cadillacs, blah, blah, blah. Dusty was the common man, the working man. Hard times promo. I started to say good times. Good old hard times. The point is, this is the same thing, but for an updated audience. MJF is that entitled, rich, successful millennial prick, and Darby is this fucking weirdo. I don't know. It's not my generation, but I can see where his fans fucking like him for not wanting money and checking himself into therapy and working everything out in the whole 9 yards.
And he feels authentic.
Yes, he said with his AEW money, he bought his parents a house and helped his dad retire. So the point is, I can see he's doing a great job verbally. Who would have thought it? Cinderella story out of nowhere. And I can see him connecting, especially with the AEW audience demographic like this. And he had the fans chanting Darby. So they've got something with these two. If they continue to try to, and they were having cutaways of Sammy and his Ty Mello Conti watching the monitors, and Jungle Jack, Jungle Jim. If they continue to try to put those two in this situation, it's going to muddy it. They've got something with MJF and Darby. And MJF got back in his face and told him, morals kill careers. And I'm tired of you and Jack and Sammy whining about my conduct and blah, blah, blah. I could give a shit if I go to heaven. Well, now, see, he's Jewish, right? So that doesn't count anyway. Where do you guys go?
We go to heaven. What the hell are you talking about?
I don't know. That's a question.
Where do you think you're going? Where do you think you're going?
I'm going under the dogwood tree.
You sure are.
Well, that's I've made my plans. I don't know where but I didn't know if there was a different fucking category that y'all was a part of. Trying to learn these things.
We're all a part of the kingdom of heaven.
Except for the people that's going to the dogwood tree.
You hear that? It's like a thunderstorm that just broke out outside as soon as I said that. That's not good.
See now?
That's not a good sign.
Maybe there are other plans for you're not aware of.
I'll be over here now.
That's your patented line. Anyway, back in the action here. MJF could give a shit if he goes to heaven. He's willing to do whatever it takes. And Darby, your legacy is going to be Darby Allin, Sting's bitch. And I have, to this point, I've thought this has been great. And then Sting's music plays. And Sting comes out, and suddenly the mood in the ring, and I'm not knocking Sting. He's got to be Sting. Sting didn't need to be in this for Darby's sake. I know Tony is a Sting mark and people want to see Sting. I'd be happy to see Sting somewhere else, but not right in the middle of this, right at this moment, because the mood changed. Darby just walked back over to the corner. Sting took center stage. He's the big star. He's been Darby's mentor, but goddamn, I think we've kind of passed that point. We've got Darby face to face in the ring with the world champion. And Sting, the first thing he does, because he's been called Darby's cheerleader or whatever, and maybe because there was a stock room in the back and he saw some shit and had an idea, he pulls pom-poms out of his jacket and slaps MJF in the face with them and throws them at him and kills the heat that MJF had just built. And now MJF is looking like the kid that was on the indies a couple of years ago, because he's in the ring with a universally recognized wrestling star that's making smart-ass remarks to him and not showing not only not fear, but not any resentment toward the comments that he's made.
And he's always been better off the mic.
He's making fun of the world champion and the comments that he made that were supposed to be so deeply disturbing to Darby Allin. And then and because I know if somebody came up with this verbiage, or maybe it was Tony's himself, but they wanted to drop Cody's name. Because since MJF is blistering Darby for having Sting as his backup and his big brother, and that's what he looked like here, his big brother, then instead of Daddy Daycare, Sting said, oh, Cody Daycare. Oh, did I say Cody? He was your support system. It didn't need to go that direction.
Yeah, now, what the fuck? What are they doing?
Completely lost the plot, lost the fucking moment of MJF and Darby, and it's become Sting bringing up that Cody's gone as a way to make mockery of MJF and take the heat off of him he just built. So then it became, and then Sting is, it's all a promo about Sting's gimmicks. When I was the Crow, hey, he shouted out Ric Flair for making him a star. And the NWO, hey, thanks, Kevin and Scott.
Yeah, he did Ric Flair's Hall of Fame speech from Muda. It was all about him.
Yes. And he made sure to say, I don't want the world title because Showtime is about over. But it's just starting for Darby, and he'll become world champion one of these. He talked to MJF like he was a punk kid. He talked about Darby like he was defending his little buddy or little brother, and took attention onto Cody and Flair and Hall and Nash, and distracted from the heat that some level of legitimate passion that MJF and Darby had created for themselves, conflict there. It just went a completely different direction. If they had gone from Darby, your legacy is going to be being Sting's bitch, to Darby saying, I'm going to be the bitch that beats you, bitch, to then what MJF did finally was, after Sting's haranguing of him, he walked up and spit in Darby's face and bailed out, and Sting wasn't involved. That would have been a fine interview with me if you'd had MJF and Darby booked for a world title match on a pay-per-view and you did that a week or two ahead of time. But I don't think Darby is at the point where he needs a 63-year-old mentor speaking for him or even representing him anymore if they're going to put him in this position. What do you think?
I liked the match. And then the post-match with MJF and Darby, I really liked. As you said, Darby has really stepped it up on the mic. I really enjoyed all this. As soon as Sting came out, when Sting came out, that should have been the end. You know, like you said, he could have spit in his face there. Even leave it at your Sting's bitch and let Darby do something. But that should have been the end. And then it went on for a while longer. So ends up feeling like it went on too long. And then it's Sting. And Sting's never been good on the mic, like I said earlier. So now he's out there dressing down the world champion. They'll probably try to justify with MJF kicking the shit out of Sting backstage or something at some point. But it doesn't justify it. And I want to get your take on this. I know that everyone knows that he was one of the founders of the company. He's the EVP. And Tony Khan brought him up when making the Wembley announcement. But is it smart to be bringing up Cody Rhodes in the middle of something like this?
No. Because again, Cody, the guy who left, the guy who was MJF's mentor, now suppose the story would have been if, and they were already starting to tell it, that MJF came out from under Cody's influence and became his own guy, and eventually MJF would have decisively beaten Cody, blah, blah, blah. But now you've reminded them that, well, the guy that left was just in the main event of WrestleMania facing the biggest star in the business for the biggest title in the business. And meanwhile, his former protege is over here. He's the world champion of this company, where the guy that used to be the champion in WCW 30 years ago is talking for the fucking guy that wants to challenge for it.
On TV, for the first 3 months of the company, Cody and MJF were friends.
Yeah.
So you have to be someone who was watching the first few months of TV leading into MJF turning on Cody to even know what any of this is about. And again, it's about Cody. It's about another company's main eventer. Throwing him into this. Unnecessary.
And I'll say one more thing. What you said about Sting is it's never been his forte, the long soliloquy promos. But sometimes if something comes to his mind or he can't remember exactly where he's going next, he'll just blurt something out to get himself in the mood for it. I don't even know if they knew he was going to talk about, hey, Kevin Scott, whatever the fuck. He just he was in that. But no, and we were 35 minutes into the program by the time the Darby match and all these promos ended. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, you know what? I do come out of this. I wish Sting wasn't involved, just because I think it does muddy this. But I do come out of this wanting to see, to your point earlier, Darby versus MJF. I've been very complimentary of Sammy's stuff recently, but I'd rather see Darby MJF right now. I think you're right. Instead of the four-way they're going to do.
And Darby's got the people naturally because they like him and he's got that charisma. And that's, again, when he did the dive, like the bullet-like dive, and I criticized so much that they did because my God, it was like you've beaten someone with a sledgehammer for the first 2 minutes and now we're going to go grab a leg lock. It just at least put the fucking sledgehammer at the end. But the thing is, if they weren't allowing everybody who possibly can to do the dives and the flips and the death-defying things, then when Darby Allin, the little undersized underdog guy, but with the charisma and the speaking ability now and the gimmick and the support from the fans, when he does it, it's going to mean more anyway. So if he's the only one that was doing it, or one of the only ones instead of everybody, it would mean so much more. And that's the way you create a unique star. Who was doing shit like Tiger Mask in Japan when Sayama became Tiger Mask?
Nobody.
Exactly. And then they had to bring in the Mexicans and the Europeans and the people from different parts of the wrestling world to work with him because the Japanese guys couldn't necessarily do that style at that point, and all of them hang with him. And they brought in the opponents that he had worked with in his tours of England and his tours of Mexico, and they kind of knew the drill, and then they trained a few. But it was exclusive to him, and he was the biggest attraction in Japanese wrestling. And that's when they had legitimate major national stars in both companies. But when everybody does something, as that now, if anybody did any of Tiger Mask shit, they can't do it as well. But if they did any of it in Japan, now people have seen it for 40 years. It's not revolutionary. But
with the Pillars thing, out of the other three, he's the one I could actually see having a long-term back and forth.
Yeah.
Even with Gap's feud with MJF more than Sammy or Jungle Boy.
I'm sure they can have some nice spots with Sammy or Jungle Boy in their matches. If they want to draw money, it's Darby Allin.